So Andrew Nicholls is from AEM Technologies, and Andrew is an electronics engineer with 30 plus years experience. You don't look that old, Andrew. He has spent the last 10 years working on solar PV and renewable energy projects and research, delivering solar PV projects from 5 kilowatt to 1 megawatt for grid connect and off-grid systems, as well as Singapore's first 1 megawatt floating solar PV testbed.
Yep, I'm ready.
Yeah, okay, great, Andrew. I'll hand over to Andrew Nicholls. Thank you.
Hello there, thank you very much for the intro. So, welcome to the short half-hour session. Normally this goes on for about 2 hours. I've been doing a series of these before in this area. So we're going to rush through a few things, but I will definitely slow down for the more important subjects which will affect those in this room, I hope. So just quickly, just a quick roll of hands. Who in this room actually does have a solar system on their house at the moment? So let's just have a look. It looks like about 85%, something like that, which is normal. That's the normal response that I get, and that's great. So leaving your hand up in the air, who of those are actually looking into storage, battery storage? So that's dropped down to about maybe 9%, 10%. And that's, again, the normal thing. It's a bit of a subject that not many people know about. There's a lot of new things happening, and that's exactly why. Why isn't this working? Oh, are you kidding me? There we go. Okay. Josh Frydenberg is the man who's looking after the Minister for Energy and Resources. Now, he's saying that there's nearly 15% of all Australian households that now have a solar system on their roof. So that's pretty impressive. Most of those are actually in Queensland, and New South Wales is not too far behind. Now, I brought up both those because we're on the border there, so that's interesting. I'm actually based in South Australia at the moment, and we are number 2, which is pretty cool. Battery storage systems. So, let's talk about them. First of all, if you have the battery storage system added into your solar, you're going to get 24 hours of uninterrupted power, green power, okay? There are conditions with that. The most important thing is that you don't always get uninterrupted power if you go with what we call a hybrid system. And we will talk about that more in a second. So just be aware, if the power does black out, you will still lose power to the house, even if you still have battery storage connected. There are a few other advantages with having battery storage. It's what we call provides peak load shedding. Does anyone know what that is? Peak load shedding. Okay, so what that is basically moving the actual load, your house load, you're running your air conditioner or whatever, and just delaying it. So you're storing it for a set time, and then you're using that storage energy again. Now, why would you do that? It's to avoid the off-peak tariffs and the price difference that's associated with using energy during those different times. And we call that peak load shedding. Now, just out of those, I'm sure that everyone in this room has actually looked at their electricity bills in great detail. And is anyone in this room noticing a big difference between peak and off-peak electricity usage in price per kilowatt hour? Anyone at all? Don't be shy. Okay, so that response tells me that your charge are the same any time of the day or night. Is that correct? Okay, so that doesn't actually come in, and that wouldn't be an advantage here for peak load shedding yet. But the utility companies can change that at any second. And I think we all know they're quite powerful to do that. The disadvantages of battery storage systems. Okay, so they are definitely more expensive, and we'll talk about that with the ROI and the actual price. By the way, Imogen is running around. Put your hand up. She's from the solar shop, the Solar Man, and she's just getting a few details. She'd like feedback. Any questions? We can contact you by email or phone if you want us to come out and have a look at your property. If you're thinking about storage, no obligation at all. Or if you just want to contact me and talk about a few more questions first before you make the decision. So she's with us. And the disadvantages. Okay, so they are more expensive. We'll talk about that towards the end of this. Obviously, there is a little bit more electrical hardware that needs to go with batteries, and that's with different types of inverters, different wiring, switch breakers, cabling, that sort of stuff. And obviously you need to have some careful design work. This is more for off-grid systems, which is another different thing again. But it's all about, the main thing is, what are you using for your loads in the house? And when, okay? So are you washing your clothes during the day or at night? Are you running the air conditioning at day or night, and for how long? These big loads are really what's driving the force, whether or not this will work for you. So during the day with the battery storage system, the solar power, obviously it works with the solar system on your roof. That will charge the batteries during the day, okay? Any excess power will power the loads in the house, and any excess power after that will feed out for your little 6 cent feed-in tariff, which is coming. But the idea is very little export. We want everything to go and be used behind the meter. This is your property. We don't want to export anything back out to Energex. Now during the night, obviously there's no sun, so these charged batteries will power the loads, the house, okay? And the batteries aren't huge, okay? Not for Grid Connect, but if you have an off-grid system, they must be huge because you're powering, this is your power source. But with Grid Connect battery storage, it's a much smaller battery size we're talking about. So this is the key thing, and I need you to write this down. So 2 types of battery systems here. Be aware there are 2 types of systems. There is the battery backup, which is the UPS, just like a computer has a UPS, uninterrupted power supply. It's the same thing. If you pull the plug out, it maintains power to that equipment that's connected to it for a set number of hours. The other one is a battery hybrid, and that's the one that will shut off when the grid shuts off. It doesn't store power. It doesn't maintain power when you lose power in the grid. So that's very important that you understand those 2 different systems and the applications that you want out of this storage system. Let's talk about the UPS system. It's a simple block diagram there. If you look at the notes that you've got, that Imogen's handed out, you've got a copy of these presentation notes. So basically, a UPS system is charged, solar on the roof, they all do that. Battery is about 6 kilowatt hour. If you come and visit us on the Solar Man, the far left-hand corner, we've actually got a demonstration 6 kilowatt hour box. You see how small they are. They're actually quite small. But the main thing with the battery backup is that the UPS part of it is that they have a separate circuit that you will have to pay extra for your electrician to wire in your house. Okay? And you have to decide what is continually running when you lose power. And that could be just the fridge, or it could be a couple of lights in the fridge, whatever. That's your decision, and it's your separate circuit. It will not maintain power to the whole house. And that is very, very important that you understand that. Okay? So it's only a small battery, but it will get you out to the next, when the power comes on again. This is a basic block diagram, and this is a product that we've installed many of here in Australia. It's the GMDE UPS system. This is a block diagram of the installation. You have 2 components. You have the inverter, which is a big red box on the wall, and below it you have the battery box. Very simple. There's a couple of cables that you interconnect, but the most important thing is that you can see coming out of the box, the red box, 2 electrical circuits, and one goes to the switchboard outside your house, and the other one is what they call emergency load, the separate AC load. And what happens to the AC load when you lose power to the grid? It maintains the power, but only to that. So the rest of the house is black. All right? Everyone okay with the UPS system? So the other one is the battery hybrid system. And this one's different. Whereas the UPS will maintain power to select loads, the UPS shuts off on all loads. And we all know, we all have solar, 85% of this room has a solar system on their roof already. So what happens when the power shuts off on your solar system? What happens to your inverter? Shuts down. Does anyone know why that happens? Okay, it's a safety thing, because if that inverter still produce power when you have a blackout, that's potentially putting power back into a live faulty cable in the street, which is potentially putting linesmen at risk. They're trying to fix a faulty line, and the system's still putting power out to that line. So the inverter must shut down within 2 seconds of sensing a power outage. And the battery hybrid system is no different. Okay, it's only connected straight into the switchboard. And this is a Fronius, example Fronius system. Again, we've sold many of these products. And very simple, you've got one inverter and you've got the battery box. And they're just connected together. But whereas the previous product, the UPS, had 2 electrical circuits coming out of it, this one's only got the one, straight into the switchboard outside your house. So no additional wiring to the house. Very important. Very simple to install. Very simple. And this is the key part of a retrofit system. If you've got a current solar system at the moment and you want to upgrade to batteries, very easily, then this is the system. You'll have a battery hybrid solution to get over that, simply because you don't need to have any additional wiring. We talked about load shifting before. It doesn't seem to be a problem here because you have a set rate day and night. But if you didn't, it has the ability, this is for both UPS and hybrid, to charge the batteries at a predetermined time when the energy is cheaper, which will be off-peak. Certain times it'll be certain times late morning and certain times mid-late afternoon. And then use that stored energy during peak times, which would be 4 to 7 p.m. at night, for example. And the morning peak, if there's any left over. That's called load shifting. Tariff optimization is a very similar thing. So it's using the off-peak and peak from the grid. Okay? So it's optimizing the best times and the cheapest times to use your stored power in the batteries. Okay, let's talk about battery technologies. I think we all agree this can be quite confusing. What batteries are better and what batteries are on the market, what do I use? Basically 4 different types. Lead acid, we all know where the lead acid batteries are used. What's the most common product the lead acid is used in? Cars, that's right. Trusted, very old technology. And it's still around. And there are new types of lead acid technology that's out, which is able to operate at much higher temperatures and have deeper depth of discharges. But they come at a price and they're very heavy. The new one that we all know about is lithium ion. And what's the most common product we all have that's run by lithium ion batteries? Phone, that's right. And I just heard yesterday that the new Samsung Note 7 has been recalled because of some, I don't know if it's the charger or the battery, but we all know that it's mobile phones. But the lithium ion that's used in battery storage with grid connect batteries is that it's mixed with different chemicals, which causes it to be more stable and able to hold its charge for longer and deeper. The other type of battery is called a flow batteries. I noticed there was some Aqueon batteries here today as well. This is a flow battery, which we'll talk about in a sec. And the last one is the hybrid ion, which is again another flow battery. That's actually the Aqueon. So we've got lead acid. I won't dwell on this, but we know we use it every day, everywhere. They're very heavy, very bulky, but they're cheap, and they're easy to charge. The chargers that you can buy are very cheap to charge up a lead acid battery, and that's great. So they're the advantages. The disadvantages, what's the biggest disadvantage about a lead acid battery?
Can't be discharged.
Sorry?
They can't be discharged.
That's right. They can't be discharged fully to the depths that we can with the other technologies. without destroying the battery. So it has limitations in its use. Lithium ion, on the other hand, it has a much deeper depth of discharge. Now, depth of discharge, that means if the battery was full, you can drain that battery all the way, in this case, to 90% of its energy. That means only 10% of energy is left. So you got almost all the energy in that battery you can use. And that's fantastic, because if it was a lead acid, it's about 20 to 30% you can use. But this one, you can use 90% of it. It's got a much higher power density. That means they are much smaller for the same energy density, smaller and lighter. And once again, we have an LG Chem 6 kilowatt hour battery. Come over and have a look at it. The equivalent with lead acid would be 10 times larger and heavier. So it's packed with power. These are different types of lithium ion. I'm not going to go on this. Lithium iron phosphate, or they call LiFePO batteries. Nickel manganese, cobalt, oxide, lithium titanate, LTO. There's a whole range of these names that are coming out now. They each have their own little advantages and disadvantages. So, as I was saying, lithium ion batteries, they are mixing with different chemicals to make them more stable, more packed with energy, greater depths of discharge. This will go on forever, this sort of stuff. These are flow batteries. Now, flow batteries, I'm sure, has anyone heard of flow batteries? These types of family batteries, where the electrolyte is actually a liquid. Very different technology. I'm not going to dwell into how it works here, we don't have time, but the red flow and the Z cell are the two battery names that I'm sure some of us may have heard. The Z cell in particular is an Australian Brisbane boy who's making that battery. It's a liquid. It has two big pumps. That's what they look like. It's a big thing. There's a Z cell. So it's actually two fluid pumps that mix the chemicals together in a big mixing tank. And that action creates the electrolyte solution to create charge. 100% depth of discharge on that, right there. So these flow batteries have got fantastic. The energy you put in, you get all of that back out again. So in that respect, it's highly efficient. Can't get better than that. But there are some disadvantages. They're obviously very big because they've got these fluid tanks, the chemical tanks. Pricing has to come down a little bit. But that, we come back on these sort of, that's hybrid ion, come back on these flow batteries in about 12 months' time, and the technology would have emerged so much better. These are the hybrid ion, which are the saltwater, the aqueous batteries that I was talking about before, green energy. And I noticed there was some here in the stand. So this is made by sodium, and sodium is salt. So it's basically a salt water battery, very environmentally friendly. If you throw it into the sand, the electrolyte will just flow back into the water. There's no pollution, there's no acid spill, nothing like that to worry about. It's all environmentally friendly stuff. And now it's a battery. So once again, this is an emerging technology. It's out now, but give it 12 months to mature, fantastic. Prices will come down. So this is just a wrap up of what I've done. I don't have time. I normally go into some of the numbers and we talk as a big group, but they're on your notes anyway, and I basically said the disadvantages and the advantages. Notice I've got the Tesla Powerwall in there. I'm sure we've all heard of the Tesla Powerwall, right? Just be aware that when you buy the Tesla Powerwall, you're only buying the battery. They have a very clever marketing strategy. They think you pay $6,000 and you get everything. It's a total solution. No, it's not. You still need to buy the battery charger to charge that battery. And there's only a couple of battery chargers in Australia that will work with Tesla. Just be aware of that, because it's a high voltage battery. It's like a 400 volt battery. Whereas the other batteries are all 48 volt batteries. Okay, so this is the biggest thing why we're all here, ROI. Should I install battery? Who's still on the 60-cent feed-in tariff? That's going to be gone. So 10%, 12% of the room. Are you ready for the change? You're going to go down to 6 cents net from 60 cents. How do you feel about that? You're the people that would be probably the best in the room that would benefit most from batteries. And the reason why is because you would have spent as much as you possibly could to get the biggest solar system from day one on your roof, to get maximum 60-cent feed-in. Am I correct? Because you did it to make money, right? And I'm that person as well. I put mine up to make money. I'm on 52 cents down in South Australia, and I'm still on 52 until 2020 or something. I'll be one of the last people in Australia that has that feed-in tariff. So, what are you going to do with all this export? I've seen $800-900 credit every quarter bills. That's going to be worth a lot less. So you're just going to throw all this money back to Energex, and they're going to say, thank you very much, goodbye. Wouldn't it be great if you could charge up batteries behind the meter and then use that energy again later? That's the biggest market for you guys, because you're on that feed-in tariff change. The other, should I install battery storage? Well, again, your difference between peak and off-peak tariffs doesn't look like it's an issue in the spring. But if it was an issue, this is, for example, if you're paying 40 cents during peak times, which would be between 7 and 10 in the morning and 5 and 7 at night, and off-peak times could be 5 cents, that's a huge difference between tariffs. And again, that's when you do the peak locking, which would charge the batteries during cheap electricity and discharge during expensive electricity, because you can program up when they do that. So that's another good reason to use it. The other thing is, do you have a reliable grid connection? Do you have many blackouts and brownouts? Just out of interest, is this an issue up here? Blackouts? Do you have a reliable grid here? Seems to be, yes. So this wouldn't be a big reason to do that then. So if you did have a lot of blackouts, where you just don't know when you're going to have power, this is probably more so for the country, the more remote locations where they have the swirl line which connects to the house in the mountains. I hear this is an issue up here, with storms especially. And if it does go out, it can take a long time to reconnect. Would I be right in saying that? If that's the case, then UPS. Remember what I said about UPS? What is the primary function about a UPS that's different from a hybrid system? That's right, no power during blackouts and power during blackouts. So the UPS would be your primary system design if you have blackouts. So that will give you power during blackouts, whereas a hybrid system does not. So you need to know that. Okay, so we're just wrapping it up a little bit here. So how much does it cost? How much are we going to work out? It's a complex equation because there are so many variables which I've just gone through. But based on an average household, in which they say is 17 kilowatt hours a day, that's not very much from what I hear just talking to some of these people this morning. A 6 kilowatt hour battery, usable. Remember, you've got that depth of discharge figure, so you've got to be that much bigger to come back down to 6 kilowatts. And a 4 kilowatt peak solar array on the roof, which I think most of you already have anyway, and based on the 6-cent feed-in tariff, which you're going to save around $600 to $800 a year, which is about $1.60 to $1.80 per day. And if you go back to 30-cent tariff, it's about 4 to 5 kilowatt hours a day that you need to generate from batteries, which is about the 6 kilowatt hour battery. It's a complex formula because there are so many variables, but that's a ballpoint figure. So it's not a huge amount, and it could be more if you have the off-peak peak difference wider, okay? And a stronger reason more if you have power blackouts and you really do need that power 100% connection. So I just want to make it clear, I'm not a salesman, okay? But I want to be honest with you, and we all know this anyway, you just want to hear it from someone else. Battery storage is not for everyone. Okay? I'm not ready for storage yet because I'm on a high feed-in tariff. Why would I possibly do that when I'm getting 52 cents? Okay? But you may lose that soon, and you are anyway, some of you are. Lifestyle choices. The last thing is battery technologies are emerging. Have a look at the battery technologies. There may be something you want. I want the LG Chem, which is a 6 kilowatt battery. I know it's so much money to buy, but I also know that the prices are falling, and there will be a time when I can afford that, and that's when I'll buy. So that would work for you as well, perhaps. All right, so there's no hiding that battery prices are falling, but not as fast as you think they are. So what can I do now? Well, as I said, those that have got the 60 cent going to 6, you've already most likely got the largest solar system you can afford on your roof, correct? Pretty much. Maybe there'll be a few not. You did that to get that 60 cent feed-in tariff. So that could be used, because it's so big. That's a cost you don't have to add on again with your changes. We can retrofit these systems, okay? So the other thing is you can go to just a normal grid connect system, 4 to 10 kilowatt, the biggest system you can put on your roof. At such time when the feed-in tariffs change or the peak off-peak tariffs kick in and really make an impact, or for any other reason, the blackouts become more and more frequent, things like this. So there will be a trigger point where it would start to actually be okay to put this on. Battery storage systems can be easily retrofitted later from any existing solar grid system. That's really want to drive that point in. So it can be done, and cheaply. All right? And this is what you're going to look like in a few months' time. So that would be January, first week of January, when you get that last bill, or the first bill. Yeah, I'm just talking to a few, there's a couple of gentlemen there I was talking about earlier about, do you have to pay for that meter upgrade as well? Because that could be $600 out of your pocket, because you've got to change the meter over from gross to net. So all these little things would soon add up. So thank you very much for coming here today. So that's good timing, on the dot, 11:45. Is there any questions before I go? The question was, what do you have to do for these retrofit systems? Assuming you've got a good solar array already, you will need to change the inverter over to the hybrid inverter. Remember, the Fromies, for example, and the batteries. 2 components. That's it. And the labelling will be different, and it'll be half a day's work installing it, maybe less. So it's very simple. But it's 2 main boxes, the battery box and the new inverter. If you have a later model inverter, you may not need to do the inverter, depending, it could be hybrid ready, somewhere written in the fine print. Yeah, so there's a question there about what the meter would be when you go to batteries. I pretty much would be certain in saying that it would be, you would have to change the meter over to a net meter, which would be the new meters, the smart meters. But remember the first slide I said, ideally you don't want to export anything with batteries. Keep it all behind the meter, because you're not going to get much anyway. But you will need to do the meter changes.
How much is the net meter worth?
How much is the net meter worth? I'm actually not sure, because I'm not from here, but I'm guessing it's probably a couple of $100. In SA, it's $600 for 3-phase.
Single phase is $450, 3-phase is $850.
$850 for 3-phase. How much for single phase?
$450.
$450 for single phase. Wow. That's how they make the money. Any other questions before I go? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Andrew. Most informative, and just on behalf of Tweed Shire Council, I'd like to present you with a little book on the Tweed, particularly given that you're from South Australia.
Thank you very much.
You can take home a little memory of the Tweed.
All right.